A devastating explosion, multiple accidents occurred on Wednesday, 19th March 2025 at about few minutes to 7 in the evening under the Karo Bridge along Kubo Nyanya, Abuja Kefi Road, leaving many injured. Some persons dead and others burned beyond recognition. The multiple crashes were said to have involved about 18 vehicles, including 2 articulated vehicles and other cars said to be severely damaged, with some engulfed in flames. Emergency responders visited the accident scene to manage the situation. Some eyewitnesses, however, attributed the cause of the crash and explosion to brake failure, which led to a chain reaction of collision involving the vehicles and made worse due to involvement of a compressed natural gas-powered heavy-duty truck. This tragic event underscores the pressing need for stringent safety measures and infrastructure improvement, as well as charting robust strategies to prevent such occurrences in the future. These and more will be a focus on Nigeria Today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ikaria Clinton. Now with me in the studio for this conversation is Segun Ogungbemide. He's a Core Public Education Officer, Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC. It's a pleasure to have you in Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
And joining us via Zoom from Maryland, United States of America is Simon Patrick Obi. He's a Supervisory Board Member, Youth for Road Safety, yours. It's good to have you join us for the conversation.
Much for having me. My pleasure to be with you.
So I'll start with you, Segun. Can you give us a kind of a detailed account of what happened? I mean, some of the information we really don't have that you think we should know about.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me just once again commiserate with this country, Mr. President, and the entire nation on behalf of the Corps Marshal, the Federal Safety Corps, Shehu Mohammed, for the pathetic incident that happened yesterday, which we never wished for, but had to experience again. It was an issue that happened around 7 p.m., you know, at the peak period when people were returning home. A truck loaded with cement was trying to descend the Kubo towards Karo Bridge, and along the line, according to our preliminary investigation, there was a failed brake and eventually ram into other vehicles, which eventually led to inferno that we all witnessed. Some lives were lost. As at the last count last night, we lost 6 lives and about 25 people were injured. Like you rightly said, 18 vehicles were actually involved in the crash. But the information we got this morning as a follow-up to those that were taken to the hospital, additional 2 persons died, and that has been the trend. We have been able to clear the road of all the obstruction, and that route is now open for free movement of vehicles.
Okay, now Patrick, before I come back to Segun, I want you to give us your view about this incident. What's your thought?
Well, thank you so very much. I mean, first thing is that incidents like this are preventable and avoidable. That's one thing we all need to know. Preventable in the sense that globally there are approaches that has been put in place to prevent such occurrence if the right thing is done. I would also commend the work of the Federal Road Safety. They are doing their best, but efforts need to be intensified to ensure that issues like this do not reoccur. And it has to be a collective responsibility, just like we often say in the field of road safety. Road safety is not the responsibility of the Federal Road Safety Corps, but it is a collective responsibility of every stakeholder and every well-meaning individual in Nigeria. And I would say that we've had cases where in Nigeria, especially in that axis, where pronouncements were made in terms of restriction of this articulated vehicle plying that road during the day due to the traffic situation. But over time, we've seen cases where those issues or enforcement was not done, or it's been done, and people are violating such pronouncements. So there is issues of enforcement, but there are also issues of transport management, and that's why it's not the duty of the Federal Road Safety alone, but it is a collective responsibility. There are issues that needs to be put in place to ensure that cases like this are preventable and avoidable.
Thank you. Now back to you, Segun. We know there are laws, guiding
Yes.
the movement of articulated vehicles, especially within this period. You said it happened within the hours of, to 7 o'clock.
Yes.
So why do you think that drivers of these vehicles keep, defaulting?
Well, I cannot really say right now that I'm aware of any law, a national law, guiding movement of trucks. Because, but what I got to know is that FCT actually put a policy in place where some categories of vehicles, mostly articulated vehicles, are not allowed to move within a period of time.
Yes.
Like between 4 and 10. These articulated vehicles were not allowed to move, and I think between 4 and 10, then between 6 and 12 in the morning, they were not also allowed to move. That's the information I got. But the sector commander, FCT, was able to also confirm that there was a task force put in place to enforce this. Because it's one thing to make the law, it's another thing to enforce. And we wouldn't know how effective the task force have been operating of recent. Because this incident that happened within this window that these articulated vehicles are not allowed to move. So how did they get to this point? And that is why we said we still have to go back to the drawing board, reactivate this law, and protect the lives of these innocent people. Like I said, it's not a national policy. Because you will recall that Federal Safety Corps, from the other hand, we try to discourage movement at night when we started having this series of incessant crashes happening at late hour. Now, to protect other citizens too, who happen to find themselves in a helpless situation when they got involved in crashes involving articulated vehicles. And that's okay. Wisdom demands that we still have to regulate the movement of all these other vehicles. But before we arrive at a decision or a policy, the government must have weighed the advantage and disadvantage. If we implement these policies, what are the benefits? And this other side, what are the disadvantages? So I want to believe we still have to just go back to the drawing board. What is more important is the protection of these road users, so that we reduce the kind of carnages that we experienced yesterday.
Thank you very much. Now, back to you, Patrick. Talk to us about, I know where you are, share some of the, global approaches, that are being employed for the safety, to ensuring safety, in other clans that you think that we should copy from.
Yes, I think there are a lot of approaches that are put in place to avert cases like this, and that has to be holistic. One aspect of it is the quality of those who drive this vehicle. This vehicle the risks associated with this vehicle are enormous, and so it goes back to what kind of licenses do we issue these drivers. I know the Federal Road Safety Corps has good policy. They have different categories of licenses, especially for these people, but also that enforcement has to be put in place. It has to be strict, because at the end of the day, it involves lives. When crashes involving articulated vehicle happen, it takes a lot of it includes a lot of casualty, and that's why the enforcement has to be intensified. And then issues of public transport system. We've seen cases where the public transport system in the FCT, which is the capital city of Nigeria, it's not effective. And then what that means is that we've seen a lot of people using their personal vehicle for transport purposes. As a result, the road is jam-packed with a lot. But if there is a good transport system, of course the road will be a bit free. People will be happy to park their vehicles in their home and use the public vehicle, which would in turn improve road safety. So that's one area the government needs to also pay attention, ensuring that in the federal capital city, that the public transport system, well, that's what we see over in climes like the US, where I am connected from. And of course, the road worthiness of the truck itself. Most of these trucks have issues of brake. So it's behoves the duty of the law enforcement officers, whether it's Federal Road Safety Corps, the VIO, or the police, whoever that is in charge, to ensure that these high-risk vehicles, they are roadworthy enough to ply the Nigerian road. And of course, again, the issue of the traffic that we see in that axis, it's not just vehicle alone. When you go around that vehicle, I've been in that area for a while, and you see cases where people are selling on the road, and then as a result, it constitutes traffic jam, and so every little thing that happens there would involve mass casualty. And so that's why I say it has to be holistic. Those people selling things on the road, they have to be moved, right? They have to be moved. And this approach has to be inclusive. You have to also find alternative for those people. Otherwise, it could sound being dictating, and which would also constitute other problem. And so there is no one fits approach to this problem. It has to be holistic. And then again, I hear Oga Shengu mentioning that there is no national policy to this area. There should be a national policy that should solve this problem, because it's not just in Abuja that this thing happened. Recently, we saw what happened in the northern region in Niger State, cases of involving articulated vehicle, and we saw the mass casualty that are involved. And so there is need to be holistic, to make concrete policies and enforce them that would ensure that not just in Abuja, but everywhere, that people who use the road are safe and articulated vehicles are also safe as well.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Now, back to you, Shengu. Of course, when Patrick was talking, he mentioned about the roadworthiness of the vehicles. How often does the Corps, conduct inspection of articulated vehicles to enforce, safety standards?
Yes, thank you very much. This is more of a routine thing. You recall in 2007, the road safety standardization scheme was introduced into the transport system when we started having a series of crashes involving these articulated vehicles, and there were a lot of casualties, and we came up with this policy where we said all articulated vehicles, that everybody that has, or any company that has more than 5 vehicles in his fleet or a fleet, must be registered under a regulatory body. And what are we out to check? We check the conduct of the driver, we check the status of the vehicle, and we also confirm the operating system of the operators. And this has assisted us over the years. Whatever we are experiencing today is, let me say, a kind of reward for what we have done in the past. Reward in the sense that we've been able to reduce to the barest minimum crashes involving articulated vehicles and tankers. Just like Patrick said, this vehicle is the most dangerous vehicle when it comes to categories of risk, making reference to tankers now that is loaded. Any crash involving this vehicle results into inferno, and the effect is always quite devastating. But when you look at the number of tankers that ply Nigerian roads, the number of trucks that ply Nigerian roads in thousands on daily basis, you know that to a large extent we have done so much in terms of policies we put in place to regulate this. If not, it will have been worse than what we're experiencing today. Because we all say that, oh, we give enough public education. But when we don't put enforcement, it's like entertainment. At the same time, our enforcement too has to be categorized. Enforcement
what do you mean by categorizing?
Yes, categorized in the sense that enforcement is not just about running after vehicles on the highway. It's more devastating, more dangerous to run after a loaded tanker on the highway. So the direction of our enforcement is at the point of loading. And this is where federal government has come in to put all the stakeholders on the same page. That is not, like Patrick rightly said, it's not just about Federal Road Safety Corps. It's bigger than what we are thinking. It's all the stakeholders. Recently, the government, put in place a technical working committee on mitigating tankers on transit, where we have all the stakeholders that has to do with movement of these risky items. And what do? We form technical issues that could assist in mitigating what are the various problems we have relating to these vehicles. FRSA could be that ours is to make sure that any vehicle that is not meeting up to minimum safety standard is not allowed to load. Not to talk of being on the highway. But the people that are going to load them must cooperate with Federal Road Safety Corps. Because if they insist on loading, we have little or no impact to make. And those that are aligned vehicles that have already spent their time outside this country to be brought into the country as second hands without bothering the effect they will have on our highway is another problem. So all of us will have to be on the same page. Ours, we are going to perform the role, check the vehicle, make sure they meet up to the minimum safety standard. The scheme I also mentioned has the interface with the company. Every company that is registered under road safety has a safety manager that has been taught on what to look out for and how to check these vehicles. Over the years, we have really put so many things in place. But now we are all on the same. We are all seeing the reality. That is not just about Federal Road Safety Corps. Everybody must be involved in stopping this menace.
Okay, now, but Patrick, I know that in the clan where you are right now, that there are situations where people, when they default, even without anybody chasing them, your ticket is brought to you in your at home. Now, what how do you think we can also copy from that? And again, another question I want to ask, why do you think that drivers in Nigeria keep disobeying the laid down laws concerning movement on our roads?
Yes, I would start by responding to the last question. So but let me start with the first one. So incline as this where I'm connecting from. I mean, we've seen cases where enforcement has gone beyond men standing on the road trying to enforce traffic rules. So we have technology, they have speed cameras, they have system that once you break those laws, I mean, no police officer chase you. You just get a ticket delivered to your doorstep or to the company that owns the vehicle. Yeah, I know we're moving to a system. Nigeria will one day get there, but I don't think these are high cost interventions that we need to implement. They are being done and they are sustainable in so many countries of the world, not just the United States, but also different countries that are not even as wealthy as Nigeria. We can test run this in Abuja, the federal capital. So I keep making emphasis on the federal capital territory because it's just like the face of our nation, right? So, I mean, these things are not easy to implement. We just need a commitment, strong commitment from the government at the highest level. Not just the federal road safety. They are underfunded. Nobody always says that, but I have to tell you, because I've worked with these people for many years, and I see the level of their budgeting. They are underfunded, they are undersupported, they need to be hugely supported, they need to be funded, to be able to implement such strategy. And the reason why we're seeing that people default on those traffic rules in Nigeria is because there are no consequences. Enforcement is weak, and there are different factors that are responsible for that weak in enforcement. And one has to do with technology. They don't have the Federal Road Safety Corps, which is responsible for road safety management, do not have the capacity in terms of budgeting, because if they have the budget, they're able to have this technology, they are able to acquire this recent technology to make sure that enforcement is also put in place. But we've also seen cases of lack of political will. We see cases where ministers, whoever occupy a small office in Nigeria, they move with sirens and they don't care about traffic light, So, and these are people that are entrusted in leadership position, right? So if they do that, what do you expect of the common man? Of course, they would follow the full step. And so there is need, and that's why I keep saying it has to be holistic process. Road safety is a collective responsibility, starting from the government at the highest level. Imagine if the president stopped. Imagine the impact of this if the president was moving and then stopped on the traffic light. Imagine what that impact would make in our road system. What if governors do the same, or even ministers, who go against a traffic light? We don't see that here. Whether you're a governor, whoever you are, when you move against the traffic light, you get a ticket, and you could be arrested and detained. So we need to see all of those examples, and when we begin to see those examples, people will begin to emulate. It will happen naturally. Yeah. So that commitment has to come from the government. We need all stakeholders, to get involved, because at the end of the day, road safety affects, or traffic crashes affect every aspect of our livelihood. The moment it happened in Karonyanya Road, people were stranded, economic activities were halted, lives were lost. If you quantify the value of those life loss, you will see that we're losing enormously. And so there is need for everyone to get on board.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Now, to you, Segun, talk to us. What is the road safety doing in terms of technology to ensure safety on our roads?
Well, road safety has been technology-driven establishment for so many years, even compared to other agencies. You recall that we started the introduction of our free tool of 122, where we felt rather than finding it difficult to reach out to us in case of emergency, you can easily get us through the free tool number 122. And outside that, FRSA happened to be the first establishment to introduce the speed limit device, where in as much as we cannot do a kind of route lining for all our operatives to be on the highway, there are places we cannot even reach, and especially for those that drive at night. But the installation of the speed limit device has been able to curtail the movement of the vehicles even when we are not there. There's a category of vehicles that cannot move beyond the limits, and that has assisted us a great deal in curtailing this menace. Of recent, the commercial directed that our ICT unit should put in place a special app that will have interface with members of the public, where we have the FRSA mobile app. It's all encompassing. It talks about speed limits. It talks about all the gray area where we have black spots. Even while you are on the move, you can easily interface with the technology, even including your passengers. And we also have the one that talks about, the high witness account. When things happen, you can easily reach out to us in headquarters for quick intervention, because we have the incident and pro-crash. All this put together is required to reduce the menace on the highway. We have a lot of intervention through technology, but we can only operate within the scope of the available budgets.
Oh, thank you very much. This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Nigeria Today. Our appreciation goes to Segun Ogungbemide. He's the Core Public Education Officer, Federal Road Safety Corps, FRSC. Thank you so much for coming
on the program,
sharing your perspective with us. And also a very big thank you to Simon Patrick Obi, who joined us via Zoom from Maryland, United States of America. He's the Supervisory Board Member, Youth for Road Safety, YORS. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for being part of the program. Don't forget, Nigeria Today airs every weekday at 7:30 p.m. on NTA News 24. You can also check out this episode and others on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hub. Once again, thank you for being there. I'm your carrier, Clinton. Goodbye.